Hey, it's Jack, and this video is the 3 skills that you can practice in order to have more health and more ease and less pain in your relationships. Now, if you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. We've got a really awesome growing community here, super engaged community. So you can just click the button to subscribe, and then if you hit the bell notification, you'll be notified of new videos as they come out. You also should now see a subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So go ahead, join us. Now, just before I get into this, I want to apologize. I look a little bit like a beetroot today. It's not actually because I'm ill. It's because I've been indulging in a very long bath, which is one of my kind of go-to habits for relaxation on the weekend. And I didn't quite appreciate that it would have this impact on me. So if you can bear with that, let's get right into it. So there's 3 skills that I want to share with you in this video. And the first one is letting things unfold. Now, you may or may not have come across this as an idea. It's a kind of spiritual concept in some ways. And it really means being less attached to a particular outcome of how things have to unfold. In this context, when you start dating or getting into a relationship with someone, it means that you don't have a tendency to get ahead of yourself into the future and start imagining what the relationship's going to be, or what it needs to be, or how it needs to go, or what he needs to want, or whether he wants to commit to you. Obviously, it's natural that some of these questions might be running in the background, but as much as is possible, you can practice letting things unfold. And what that means is having less agenda about where something needs to go, and also paying more minute attention to what is actually happening as things unfold. Now, equivalent of this, it's actually another practice that I do sometimes, is freewheeling in a car. Right? If you can just imagine you getting in your car and going out for the day, you don't actually know where you're going to go. You're just going to allow things to unfold. And at every choice point, every junction, every traffic light, every roundabout, if you're in the UK, you're going to just make a decision. Yeah, it feels right. It feels right to go straight ahead here, or I have a sense there's something down there that I want to explore, or now is actually time to take a break and get some rest, or have a drink, or fill the car with gas. But it's not like you have to have everything meticulously planned out, and it's not like you actually know what the overall destination is. Now, at the same time, what's difficult about this is you say, well, look, maybe you've done this before. Maybe you've let things unfold with a guy, and it's kind of gone on and it's gone on, and he hasn't really declared his hand, and he hasn't really made a move, or he hasn't committed to you. And so you're like, that letting things go kind of doesn't really lead to anywhere good. So I want to name the paradox in here. So the paradox in here is you want to let things unfold at the very same time as noticing and honoring your authentic desire. What I mean by that is noticing what you want, noticing what's true for you, and honoring that. And sometimes what you want with a particular guy may actually be different than what your mind or your expectations are, right? So you might be dating a particular guy and realize, oh, I want a committed partnership, but actually, if I really tune in and I didn't have a scarcity mindset, I don't really want that with this particular guy. Or maybe you are open, you're just open. You're like, great, if something worked out, I would love to, get committed with the right guy, but I'm not going to do that unless it's the right guy. And you only really work out if it's the right guy. How? By letting things unfold. So I want to give you a permission that you don't need to get into a relationship prematurely. And you also don't need to hang around for years, right? So there's something about allowing things to unfold with the right guy, but also it not being like, yeah, this is year 12 and he doesn't want to make me his girlfriend, right? Now, different life circumstances, there's all sorts of nuance in how two people relate, the context, your stage of development, his stage of development, geography. Obviously, there's an unprecedented amount of long-distance relationships happening. So you have to tune in a little bit to your particular context. But as a gross-orienting generalization, you don't want to prematurely commit, right? You don't want to believe you're in a relationship. I've coached people where they believe they're in a relationship with someone and they've only met them once. Or maybe they haven't actually met them, but they've been communicating a lot. So you don't want to prematurely get yourself into a relationship. You want to have a minimum effective dose of getting to know someone, allowing some of your fantasies to rub off, allowing some of your delusions to relax, right? Because we all get excited often in that initial lustful stage of relating with someone. But at the same time, if you're really clear that your authentic desire is to have a committed relationship, you don't want to hang around forever and a day for a guy to maybe decide that that's actually not what he wants. You know, obviously you've heard me, if you've listened to other videos, say it's so much easier if you want a long-term partnership to, from the beginning, find someone that wants that. And at the same time, you might have to let things unfold between you just to see like what is really here. What if we didn't have any expectations? What is meant to be happening between us? You know, maybe we have a companionship relationship that's not actually really about partnership, you know, or maybe we do the partnership thing really kind of well. And that's great, and I want it to keep unfolding. And my desire now that it's unfolded this far is that it continues to unfold. So I think you might be getting the sort of flavor of what I'm talking about here. Krishnamurti, you may have come across him, was an Indian spiritual teacher. And when he was asked what was his secret, he said, well, my secret is I don't mind which way it goes, right? That there's a trust in the unfoldingness of life, that you can't really go too far down the wrong path. Yes, we can make better and worse decisions. Yes, sometimes life kicks us in the pants to teach us something, and sometimes lessons can come hard. I know that in my own life. Some of my most important lessons have been hard, like struggles, like really hard fought won lessons. And at the same time, life is happening for you, right? So even when it's hard, there's things that are happening for you. You're getting woken out of old ideas or old identities that no longer serve you. So this orientation is, I don't mind which way it goes. It doesn't mean you can't participate. It doesn't mean you can't bring your heart and your desire, but you don't cling, you don't control, you don't attach that it has to go a certain way. And by the way, if you do this, it's so much easier to see what is really happening between you and any particular guy. It's easier to see because your filters are fewer, your expectations are fewer, your ways of needing it to go a certain way are fewer. So now there's actually more availability to see, oh, what really is here? And maybe, let's say your friends have some doubts or some questions about him, you can actually hear them rather than having to defend or protect a certain position or view. This is almost like, don't have a view of your relationship so much as what your intuition and life is reflecting back to you. So that's number one, which is letting things unfold. Number two is developing a love of reality. Developing a love of reality. And this goes really nicely with the first point. A love of reality is loving things as they really are, not as you want them to be or not as you expected them to be. A love of reality is it's okay if you and someone else are having a different experience of the same relationship, right? Because the reality is your experience and his experience are two different things. So the more you get with that program, the less resistance you experience, the less problem you experience, the less frustration you experience typically. I want to give you two examples just to kind of illustrate this. So the first example, and again, I've had this in a number of coaching clients and teaching clients over the years. The first example is getting into a relationship prematurely where you are communicating with a guy a lot and you're not actually getting real time with him, in-person time, right? And again, distance can make this difficult, but you can still be real time with someone. You can still FaceTime, you can still Skype, you can still WhatsApp video, you can find ways to be in connection in a significant way. And if this isn't happening, I want you to get really curious about, well, what is really happening? If the guy never really shows up, if the guy is always about to be meeting with you, if the guy is always a little in the future about some possibility that doesn't actually materialize, what's going on there? And the other pattern that can be happening is you might be having a lot of communication with someone that is disproportionate to the amount of time that you spend in person, right? So maybe you text this person every day, maybe you text them several times a day, maybe you text them every morning, good morning or good night, or there's little rituals you're developing over text communication, but he doesn't really take you on any dates, or you don't hang out and just chill and chat or do something or meditate together or go to the cinema, whatever it is, that's not really happening. It's like, it's a pen pal style of relationship. So love of reality here would be to say, hey, you probabilistically, you've got yourself a pen pal. And that might sound harsh to hear, but the reality is that is the stage of relating that you're in. Now, that doesn't mean to say that it couldn't develop into other terrains, but if you persist in a pen pal dynamic with a guy, in my experience, it's rare that it suddenly up levels into this guy is available for partnership with you, right? So a love of reality in this instance would be, well, let me love what is actually happening. Let me see it with clarity and precision. Let me not try and make it different. Let me not try and distort myself. And let me notice, I want more than pen pals. And if you do want just a pen pal relationship or companionship that's like that, that's totally fine. I'm not here to tell you what you want, because what you want is in you, right? What you want is a product of your heart's desire, your body's desire, your vision for your life. It's not for me to tell you that. It's for me to help you honor that. That's my intention with this kind of video. So that's one scenario where you're not really getting much, right? People might call it breadcrumbing. In this instance, I'm calling it pen paling, but there's not really a lot of in-person time and dynamic, and you feel like you ask for it or you push for it and he doesn't really respond, or he promises and doesn't follow through. Then there's another kind of reality, which is we've actually been in connection for a long time. I've known this guy months, years, maybe even more than years. And he's not stepped into a relationship with me. But I maybe believe I'm in a relationship with him, or maybe I believe he's my guy, and maybe he's in a busy work cycle, or there's something that's not allowing him to step in with me, or maybe he's from a more traditional culture. So there are questions about, for him, if he were going to settle down with me, it'd have to be like a serious thing. There are so many variations on this I've seen. It's actually been one of the most humbling parts of being in the relationship space now for the last several years, is just to see, wow, there are so many flavors of types of connections that people have, that in their heart what they want is a partnership with someone, and the reality is that this is not what's showing up in this situation. And there's normally some kind of story that goes with that about why, and often it's to do with the guy being busy, or his work, or his mission, or he's finishing up with someone else. And again, you need to listen to the nuance of your situation. But if you're waiting around for a guy, I want you to ask yourself, from this perspective of a love of reality, why are you really doing that? And what is stopping you getting on with your life? And if he wants to meet you at some point and claim you or be available for something, he can do that. That can happen down the line. But why in the present are you living as if you're in this relationship, when at best it's a pseudo relationship and at worst it's not even that? So two ends of the spectrum I see: people who prematurely meet someone and start texting them and kind of believe they're in a relationship, or people who've been hanging out for years and years and years in some kind of connection, but it's not really a relationship. You're not his partner. You're probably not even his girlfriend. There's not an exclusivity. There's not a realness. There's not a thriving of a relationship. So there's two ends of the spectrum, and the teaching point is the same for both of them, is to love reality, is to really see it as it is. And even if that's hard, painful, you've got to deal with yourself, you feel heartbroken, you feel rejected, much better to go through and feel those things and be with them than live in some kind of fantasy that is not really reality, that's not really happening for you. That's what love of the truth, the truth will set you free. Right? I think originally that comes from, I think it's John in the Bible. But the essence of the truth will set you free, in the way that it's used often in postmodern culture now, is that when you know the truth, you can actually deal with your life, right? When you see things clearly, you can actually see what you need to do. But when you hide, or you delude, or you allow yourself to pretend, it doesn't get you closer to the truth, it doesn't get you closer to your authenticity, and it doesn't get you closer to the outcomes that you want. Now, the third thing that I want to invite you to notice is what I call actions over words, right? Now, I'm not the first person to be in this territory. You've probably heard the old maxim, actions speak louder than words. And I think that's a really good maxim when it comes to relating with guys, because one of the other problems that I see really commonly in my teaching and coaching work is that women are spending a lot of time and energy trying to interpret something that a guy has said to them, right? That maybe he's just dropped casually in a conversation or a text, and they're like, well, what does he really mean by that? What does he really mean when he says he would really like to get to know me more, but now isn't the right time? Now, he could mean all sorts of things by that, right? Like, it's hard for me to say in those instances when people say, well, what does this guy mean, Jack? It's hard to know, because there's so much particularity to each person and how they communicate and why they communicate and what stage of their development they're at. And so there's all sorts of things in the background that provide a deeper context. But the point here is to spend less time interpreting words. If you're spending a lot of time interpreting words, here's one thing you can do, is you can ask a guy, when you said blank, or when you said X, what is it you actually meant by that? So I'm a fan of having real mature conversations with people where you're not in the dark, where you're actually open to what is it that you really meant by that, and you find out, right? So then you're not in some kind of fantasy land interpreting things, you're actually in the reality of what this person is trying to say to you. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is just worry a little less about words and worry a bit more about actions, right? So if a guy has said something to you and you've been spending days and weeks scratching your head, but the reality is this guy isn't pursuing you, he's not initiating with you, he's not showing up to take care of you in any ways, he's not taking you on dates, he's not pursuing a relationship, he's not pushing things forward or at least allowing them to unfold in some way, then does it really matter what he said to you, right? I don't want to be the harsh bringer of truth again, but if you're spending all this time worrying about his words, notice his action. His action is his record. When a guy is into someone, he generally doesn't have problem finding time for them. You know, even in a really busy cycle, even if it's just a 5-minute call here or a quick text there, he's going to stay connected to you. If you've been relating with a guy and it's like this, and then it's dropped off, and you're spending a lot of time looking over your text messages trying to work out what's going on, maybe you just take a step back and notice, well, he's not really connecting with me right now. He's not really initiating. He's not really pursuing me. Those things are important, particularly if you want a real partnership with a guy that has pursued or claimed you in some way. It doesn't stop you pursuing or claiming him, but most women at some level in gross generalization want a guy that's got some kind of like, yeah, I want to be with you. I want to at least get to know you. I want you to be my girlfriend. And so if that's not happening, you can lock yourself up in all sorts of romantic dramas in your head about what he may mean when he says a specific thing. He may not even remember the specific thing that he said. So it might also be that you're putting way too much weight on something that for him was just an in-passing shooting the breeze comment. But notice what he does. I'll give you different examples. There are a bunch of men that are talkers, right? Just bluntly, they're talkers. They have a way with words, they will promise the earth, they'll say all sorts of things, but it doesn't always result in an actual follow-throughable reality, right? So you don't want to be with a talker. You want to be with someone that's actually got some integrity behind their word. Now, in the olden days, this was probably cool. In the olden days, a guy, his contract was his word. You sort of think of old traditional kind of gentlemanly culture. It's like, yeah, let's shake on it, and that really means something. But I think in this territory, it's not like you're looking out for that in the same way. You want to look out for, well, what are his actions over time? What is his consistency? What is his desire to really engage with you and get to know you and deepen and forward the relationship? And that, if you spent much more time looking at that and much less time worrying about specific words and trying to decode them, you would be way closer to the truth of what is actually in this connection. What is he available for in this connection? So I'm just going to recap that briefly. We've got letting things unfold, we've got loving reality, and we've got noticing actions more than words. So I'd love you, as always, to put your questions and comments below this video. I super appreciate your engagement. We've had so many powerful questions and comments coming through on these videos. I love it. I appreciate it. I appreciate you as a community here. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, just go ahead and do that. If you haven't taken the webinar, just find the link below this video. It's a completely free webinar. It's 90 minutes of some of the best content that me and my teaching partner, Clayton, have put out into the world. So if you've not done that, I really recommend you do it. Just go find that link, click it, find a time that works for you. And as always, I'm Jack. Thanks for being here.